In today's lesson, we are going to continue our introduction to the research paper, and we're going to talk about keeping a log with your notes and avoiding plagiarism. These two things go hand in hand. So the information that you put in your log, not only does it help you to formulate your ideas, organize your ideas, record the information that you've researched, but it also helps you to recognize what has been taken directly from a source, what you have put into your own words, and so on. So in Google Classroom, I've created an assignment for you titled Research Log. This is the place where you will be expected to keep your research. Now remember, the research paper is a process, and as such, I am grading that you follow the process. One of the parts of this process, the starting part, is keeping a research log. Please do not keep your notes in another document. Remember, I don't micromanage what you do, but I will go in and have a look from time to time and see how you are progressing. The way that I can do that is if that you have typed your information in your research log. I will be keeping notes of that. I do not want you to come back to me later and say, oh, I did it somewhere else. That doesn't count, okay? It has to be in this particular assignment. Okay, so some things that you want to put in your research log. Of course, you can organize however you feel comfortable organizing, but one recommendation might be to start by organizing your information based on what source you obtained it from. So writing down the source name, all the bibliography information. I can't stress enough how important it is to get all of the important bibliography information the first time you look at that source and decide that you want to get information from that source. Make that the heading, and then you can put your notes below. Okay. I often, when I research, I find sources that I think, ooh, this might be useful. I might want to visit it later. So I might just have a list of sources, and then later I go and populate underneath the sources the information I actually get from it. All right, you definitely want to put in your log your key ideas, the information that you have found, and then of course your analysis as well. It's super important in research so that you can give proper credit to the sources where you found your information, that you organize the information with the source information. So if you went to Encyclopedia Britannica and got some information, whatever you found from Encyclopedia Britannica should fall under that heading or should be labeled as such in some way so that you know what you found and where you found it. It's very important that you do that. Now, I would highly recommend that you avoid simply copying and pasting information. Yes, that is the absolute easiest way to do things, but if you do that, then you are really putting yourself in a bad position in terms of possibly plagiarizing. If you can go ahead when you're doing the research and put those ideas and that information in your own words, it will really help you to avoid plagiarism. Equally, if you do copy and paste, you need to make note of that, or you need to put it in quotation marks, because plagiarism will not be accepted on the research paper. You will not be allowed to rewrite it if you plagiarize, and you will be written up. Okay, so it's really important that you pay close attention to what you're doing. Another thing that you want to do in your log, you're looking at a resource, you found a lot of background information, a lot of historical fact, for example, and that just sparks an idea in your head. Oh, from putting these facts together, I think X, Y, and Z. Okay, so your own ideas that you're forming, that analysis piece, go ahead and type those in your log as well so that you can make sure that you have those and that those can be migrated later into your actual paper. All right, now let's talk about plagiarism specifically. Okay, let's talk about what it is. There are different types of plagiarism, and it's important to know what all of them are. Okay, so the first one is direct plagiarism. And direct plagiarism is just simply copying and pasting someone else's work. You found it on the internet, you copied and pasted it into your log, you copied and pasted it from your log into your research paper, and there it is, a sentence, a half of a sentence, a whole paragraph, a part of a paragraph, whatever it is, that is direct plagiarism. That is, I want to say, the worst type of plagiarism. Okay, you cannot do this. Okay, the second one is self-plagiarism. And this is where you think, oh, I've done an assignment similar to this in another class, so I'm just going to use my own words in an assignment that I turned in last year, or to my history teacher or a different teacher in this paper. It is seen as dishonest. I think the best thing you can do in this situation is to go to your teacher, or if you're in university, your professor, and say, look, I've done a paper on this topic before, or on some aspects of this topic. I'd really like to use what I've already done there because it applies here, and just get that permission, just to be transparent from the start. All right, next one's called mosaic plagiarism, and this is where you borrow phrases from a source without using quotation marks, or you've taken what another author has said and you've just replaced some of the words with synonyms, and that the general structure and the meaning of the original is still there. That is still plagiarism, okay? It's important that you don't take someone else's ideas as well. I would say, if you're taking direct words, of course those go in quotation marks. But if you've got ideas, like this author had a really great idea, that was a bit of analysis that I really agree with, just make sure that you cite that source. And we'll talk in a minute about citing sources, and of course you can always ask me if you need extra help. But I think I would cite more things than not, just to avoid the idea of plagiarism. So this is like patch writing, this one, where you take a little here and you take a little there and you pepper it in with your own words as well, so that what you have, what looks like an old ancient Roman mosaic floor, a little of this and a little of that all put together to form something, but it's not an honest way to go about writing your paper. You need to always cite those sources. And of course, accidental plagiarism, this is what, I'm going to be honest, most people go, I didn't mean to, or I didn't know. Well, now you know. Okay, so accidental plagiarism is not going to be accepted. You need to make sure that your log is really detailed in terms of what's in your own words and what has been copied and pasted. This is why I said earlier, don't copy and paste into your log. This is where you get it out of your log and you stick it into your paper, and you realize later, I didn't mean to plagiarize that. I really thought I'd written in my own words. Still not acceptable. This is why that log is so important, okay? I just forgot to cite that source is not an excuse, okay? Really important that you're aware in your log of what is your own words and what ideas were not yours and what words were not yours, so you can cite properly. Okay, let's talk about how to avoid plagiarism. So there's a couple of ways to do this. First of all, we think about paraphrasing and quoting. Okay, so paraphrasing allows you to present other people's ideas in your own words. Now, rewriting another person's words into your own does require citation. Okay, so if you found ideas and words that you really like from someone else, and you reword it, we were talking about that mosaic plagiarism a minute ago, you reword it and paraphrase it, you still want to make sure that you cite it. And what that means is to put those parenthetical citations there. In the case of paraphrasing, you don't use direct quotations, but if you quote directly the specific words, that's when you use the quotations, okay? So even if you don't have quotation marks around words, but this is an idea, or you've paraphrased from what someone else has put, you do need the parenthetical citation, okay? All right, so talking a little bit about internet sources. It's really important in internet sources that you recognize that plagiarism exists here too. Just because it's not a book, just because it's not in print in that way, it's still plagiarism, okay? It's really important that you collect all of the information and data to create your works cited or bibliography page for the sources that you find on the internet. I suspect for this paper, most of what you find will be from the internet. It's not just the website, okay? Yes, it is going to be the whole URL address where you found that information, but there should be a title to that article. There should be an author listed. Sometimes there's not, okay, but we can get around that when that's the case, but you really want to look for these things. There's often a date. These are pieces of information that you need to be able to collect in your log and be able to use later on in your works cited page, because Parenthetical citations are not URLs. They are authors' last names or the title of the text that you're using. So you need something other than a URL for sure to be able to put those parenthetical citations in. Now there are pieces of information that float around the world that we all consider common knowledge. It's just, if it's something as a general rule that is well known by most people, or basic facts that people understand, these don't need to be documented. But the interpretations of the facts do need to be documented. Okay, so if it is common knowledge, you do not need a citation for it. But it is not common knowledge, then you do need to cite it. Even if it's not quoted, you need to cite it. If you're uncertain, cite. You can never go wrong with citing if you're uncertain. Okay, remember, parenthetical citations do not always come with quotation marks. There is information that you might need to give citations for that you have not put in quotation marks. Okay. All right, talking a little bit about how to cite sources. As we work through the writing process, we will get further into this. There will be a further lesson on it, but you already know the basics, right? So you're going to use quotation marks for direct quotes, plus that parenthetical citation, which contains the author's name and the page number if appropriate. That might not be something you can find online, okay? With paraphrasing, there's no quotation marks needed, but that parenthetical citation is. Now, the information in the parentheses may differ depending on the source. I'm telling you this now so that as you're creating your log of your research, you can put the correct information in that log so that you have it there later. Okay, so the above example is from a book where you've got author's last name and the page number. But in the end, what's going to happen is that the information in the parentheses will be the first piece of information given for that source on your bibliography or works cited page. So this is either the author's last name or the name in the text, the article title, the book title, that piece of information. So when you are getting information off of the internet, make sure you're not just giving a URL. Okay, you're not just copying www.encyclopediabritannica.com, blah, 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 blah. But at the top of the page, above that article, whatever they've titled it, that is what you put. Look for an author. Look for a date. You need that. Okay, you will be required to create a bibliography or a works cited page for this, as well as other documents and presentations that you create when you do research from now and into the future. So all of your resources will be included here. If you need more in-depth information at the moment, you can check out the Purdue University Online Writing Lab resource or ask me as well. Okay, so the idea for today is that you're going to go into exploratory research. You now have a solid final topic, and I want you to begin delving deeper into that topic. Use those guiding questions that were provided to help you with specific search criteria, okay? And then keep in mind that what we're doing is that exploratory research here is helping you to narrow down your topic and settle on a thesis statement, okay? The position you're taking in the paper and the reasons that you're choosing that position. You know, you might not be solid with your reasons yet, but that will be something that you're looking at today. What would be the reasons? As you find those reasons, and that's going to help you determine whether you find that this topic benefited society or didn't, for example. Use that log to record your sources and your notes. It's really, really important to keep that log nice and tidy and neat. Remember, I will be looking at it from time to time to check that you are progressing through the process.